And we're live. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you happen to be on this fine, fine Monday. My name is Scott, and with me, as always, is Trina, author of Hope for the Flowers. You have had an exciting week last week, yes, and then you also have some other news to talk about in terms of climate change and related. So let's get right into the program.
I feel so rich, Scott, in so many ways. Not rich financially, but rich in the ways that for me count the most. Yes, on Saturday I flew from the tropical Florida, Naples County, where there are tall palm trees and all kinds of beautiful tropical plants were blooming. We flew there in the morning and I got back to my house with sort of snow turning to ice. Started at 6 in the evening. And the contrast, this is not climate change, those contrasts. Those are the changes that happen from the north to south in our country during winter. But the other part of my life has been with these beautiful people from around the world in Kenya. And one of the features of what I want to focus on today is the Kenya thing. And perhaps next week I could do more of the Florida thing, because lots of important things happened for me down in Florida. I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about my way of making very small, detailed things much more important than they need to be, and maybe to let go of a few things, which is an important thing for me to let go of at 93. But it was a great time for me down in Florida. But I want to feature on the conversations that I'm able to be having across the world, particularly in East Africa, with Kenya and Zimbabwe and Mozambique sometimes, and Uganda sometimes, and South Africa too, every time practically. So I'm part of this international group called the Grail, and it's been truly a beautiful thing to discover the riches we can share with one another, because one of the features of the modern world is that we have an American influence that's so huge that the things that are happening here with our political system, and extremely right at the moment, are affecting the whole world. It's not just us that gets affected. And what I see also, since I have the privilege of talking to real human beings active in local situations in these other countries, I see how their native wisdom should impact the world. And that's one of the privileges that I feel I need to bring to the so-called developed world, because we are not developed in comparison to some of the wisdom that's in some of these people. Like in Sarah's mother, who in her wonderful garden is able to use manure fertilizer type of thing and keep it sort of damp enough that she can continue to grow things, while around her most people are using fertilizers which give abundant crops in the first year and seem very fast and efficient and well worth the extra money and everything. But we know from the past experiences, like in India and people who have used it, that in so doing, the soil is killed, all the beautiful microorganisms that help keep life in the soil and keep plants growing, and then can utilize the carbon that is sequestered into the soil, and it makes it available for the plants and the next generation. These things stop happening and the soil becomes dead in a year or two. And so the beautiful productivity that fertilizers and genetically engineered foods seem to give in the beginning no longer are giving them anymore. And yet I see that Africa has been polluted by these patented seeds and these approaches that are claimed to make the world better and more productive, and it has not proved that way at all. So Scott, I'm so aware of this. I was working at this stuff for Africa 20 years ago, and now I find the results of it there is all around. Sarah's mom are these genetically engineered plants and fertilizer approach because it seems faster. And there's drought. And there's flood in Kenya, both drought and flood. Drought most of the time, but then the flood in Nairobi. And we're going to hear a little bit from Sarah about some of these things. And so Sarah is a very educated person, as you will hear, and she's uh, on Kenya television, which was, you see, the look of it looks like NBC or something. So, Scott, maybe you want to roll any one of those.
A woman who was stable in business or maybe in farming wakes up the following day because of climate change as a vulnerable person because her farm is flooded. Yeah. She can no longer do the agriculture that she used to do. She can no longer produce food for her small family. Mm. A child who was continuing with her education wakes up in the morning and finds that her school is the shelter for people or communities who have been affected by the climate change. And so this child's education cannot continue because she has to wait. The road that leads to her school or his school is flooded. They cannot go to school. This old person in the village and even in the city who is sick wakes up to a new climate change challenge. They are affected economically, and if we rate most of the population of the old people in Kenya, most of them live in the village, most of them depend on livestock and farming. So they wake up and this livestock is not there. So this one takes us from one level of poverty to another level, and it's even worsening, something that is not expected.
That she's referring in that clip to flooding. And perhaps you know that Kenya and Nairobi in the major city, not the whole country, but was badly, badly flooded this year, where all those things took place. Schools were closed, everything was closed, nobody could get any place, and nobody could get food in the city. So, uh, Scott, you want to roll another one?
We are preaching about planting trees, but they are cutting trees and planting kiosks near the schools. Yeah. So what does that one mean? What are we really doing? So these effects are all over. Mm-hmm. They're affecting those ones in school. They're affecting those in the city. Look at those ones in slums. I happen to be a member of a group for the young people. Yeah. We normally have sports every holiday for high school students. This time round, we didn't have them because the fields were flooded. Mm. There were no roads towards those sports fields, and some activities had to come to a standstill. So all of us are being affected in one way or the other. Mm. And these effects, the worst thing is that these effects are growing worse every day. And that's why I'm saying it's leading us from one level of poverty to another one. Yeah, if we look at the SDG goals, goal number 1 is that poverty. Yeah, we have to fight poverty, but what is the level of poverty in our country today? In our communities today? I'm worried.
The SDG goals are the United Nations goals, Sustainable Development Goals, that we were supposed to hit by 2030. There's 20 of them, I believe. And I was very active with the United Nations on the food and agriculture side of things and energy every time there was a commission on what was called the Commission on Sustainable Development. They don't have that exactly in that title anymore, but I would go there, and most of my other Grail comrades would go to the Commission on the Status of Women, which is happening this month, which is coming up, or next month. It comes up now, and we have some girls arriving already from different countries. Then I hope to have them participate with me on these Monday programs as we get more organized. So I'd like to follow through with Sarah with her mention about the trees, because she wrote me a personal email that was really so beautiful about the tree. And Scott has some pictures of the tree. Scott, you might put up a picture while I read this. She wrote, I am sharing some pictures from last December gathering under an avocado tree in my family garden with friends and relatives. It is a tree that is within our compound. We have used it for many years on different occasions. It provides us with avocado fruits. This is where we hold family meetings. We don't need a tent. Its grass is soft. Most of the time, we just sit on the grass. We don't need seats. During hot seasons like now, we it's where we rest under its shade. We enjoy taking afternoon naps under the tree. Goats and cows and chickens also rest under the tree. It is a multi-purpose tree. A tree is just so vitally important. And she mentions in the text that we used from the video, the national video, um, about how they cutting down the trees near the schools. And trees, of course, provide so many environmental protections, but besides shade and other things, it helps hold the water in the soil. It helps with making home for various creatures in its branches and providing food and kindling and things that are needed all the time. So these indigenous wisdoms, which we have to learn from Africa and from our native people, this is where we need to go. And we seem to be going the opposite direction, feeling that technology will save the day, AI will save the day, artificial meat will save the day. And it's just a wonderful new article on a wonderful program. I recommend all of you check it out because, boy, the riches of these different articles in their newsletter. This is organicconsumers.org. Organicconsumers.org. Just look it up and just look at some of those articles. This headline article in this week's Organic Bites, their newsletter, is about the dangers of fake meat, the dangers to us of fake meat, which is what Bill Gates and others want us to go to, and claiming that it will help with the global warming problem by not having cows fart so much, and with methane, which is a global bad gas. But by the way, cows and animals do not produce that kind of program so much if they are fed their natural grasses. When cows are fed genetically engineered corn and soy, which is typical feed for them, they do not digest it easily, and they do fart much more. So, so and there's a desire to get rid of all meat production on the basis of global warming by these people. Now, to me, this is one of the epitomes of hypocrisy and greenwashing, because if you make a real environmental impact study about what it takes to use genetically engineered seeds in the rural planning, the tractors that are needed for that kind of thing, the kind of energy used, the deadening of the soil, the killing of the soil underneath all this kind of production, and then taking it into a processing plant, building all the machinery, grinding up everything, creative new meat-looking products that are not meat, and then selling it as fake meat, as though they were helping global warming, while telling the rest of us we shouldn't be raising chickens in our backyard or raising a cattle or a cow or two or a goat, which is what the practice is in Africa in many places. It's it's just so hypocritical. And when you have a more sustainable agriculture and you have some manure from these animals, you have a sustainable cycle that goes around, that you can use the manure for fertilizing and for, um, helping grow the next crops, and the cycle goes round and round. I'm basically vegetarian and do not eat meat, or very, very rarely have any meat. And I simply can't abide this kind of nonsense that they're talking about getting rid of all animals for the sake of global warming by people who are just create a tech revolution that uses more and more energy all the time and every day. So the hypocrisy is very serious. And so for me, it's a tremendous privilege to be in touch with these beautiful women around the world that I'm in touch with every week. So, Scott, that's my basic message for this week, which is bravo, Kenya. Bravo, the people doing the job over there. And may you know that you're doing a fabulous work that we Westerners have to learn from. Thank you so much.